What we consider mid-side processing is any processing we can do on the mid and the side part of the signal separately. Now, I've shown you already that we can do that with plugins that actually have that kind of possibility integrated. Let's say like this standard EQ from Ableton. We can, in this mode menu, instead of stereo, select mid-side. And now we can separately process the mid and the side parts of the signal. Now, what would that mean is that we have 8 filters now for the mid and 8 filters for the side piece of the signal. As well as if we did like the left and right, instead of stereo, we would have 8 filters for the left channel and 8 filters for the right channel. Now, what happens in this mid-side process, the signal is encoded into mid-side, as I've shown you already, and then you process separately everything that is mono, so everything that is exactly the same on both left and right channels, and the side, which is processing separately everything that is completely the opposite on both of those, on left and right. Now, we can do that, of course, in EQ like this. We can also do that in that Fab Filter EQ, where we can choose the mid side, like only the mids. You see, this is only the mid effective filter, and this one is only the side effective filter. Just like that. This one does both. Normal, so normal stereo operation. But I can choose to make this filter only affect the side, only the mid, or stereo, normal processing. First of all, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to cut more of the sides, less of the mids? We will get to this when we get to mixing and mastering, but we talked about that in the first course, Digital Audio Workstation course, where we talked about acoustics, that it's not really smart to have any stereo information below, let's say, 150, 200 hertz, because you can't, first of all, you can't anyway decide on where it's coming from. You can't decide the directiveness of those frequencies. This is not how our ears work, the first thing. And second, usually many sound systems that you could reproduce your music from would have everything in mono, which means that having anything stereo below a certain frequency point, and then you add those together, you would have some phase cancellation. Because what is stereo? Well, having something different in the phase on both left and the right channel, and if you had that below a certain point, those would cancel each other out. Now, sometimes it might turn out good, might turn out bad, you never know, but just to be sure that your music is going to reproduce well everywhere, you need to make sure that those kinds of technical things are taken care of in advance. So I'm cutting off everything below this point, 200 hertz, making sure that even if my music becomes mono one day, the bass is not going to cancel each other out. So the left and the right channels of bass are actually going to be mono, going to stay the same, just as I made it right here. Now, aside of having, let's say, an EQ do this mid-side processing where we can affect the mid and the side separately, let me play you some of this song and play you what's mid and what's side in this entire song. I'm going to volume down a tiny bit. I'm going to play you the entire thing, and I'm just going to play you the mid and the side part of the signal in this song. Okay, now this is only the mid, everything that is mono, everything that is exactly the same on both left and right. And now only the sides. And when we get those two together, in the end, giving us the whole picture, now we can, as you've seen, affect only the sides. You see, so I'm making sure that none of those low frequencies there from all of those basses are going to be there and maybe potentially make problems once this is reproduced on maybe a mono system or a system where actually only the bass is monoed out to be routed into the subwoofers and the subwoofer section of, let's say, a large PA. So this is one of the usages, of course, that we can use this for, and this is one of the plugins that actually has a capability inside on its own to actually give us mid-side processing. Now, what do we do with plugins that don't have that option, that don't have the capability to encode the sound into the mid-side and then let us process both of those separately? Now, what we can do is we can use encoder-decoder plugins. One of the best ones that I know is this BX Control. The easiest one to use, all in all, and I'm going to show you this on the master channel, is this one. So this plugin is just a control over the mid side. And amongst many things in this plugin, we can make everything below a certain point mono. You see, just like I did right there. So mono maker. We can disable it, enable it. So we can make certain things mono. We can stereo width, amplify the stereo width of the signal. And what this is just a balance between the mid and side. That's all. So making the mids lower in volume and the sides louder in volume, making everything more stereo. Now this will mess with your mix, because everything in the mix that had a lot of stereo, once you do this, make everything on the sides louder, those elements are going to be louder than the other elements that had less sides and more mid. So now whatever you did in the mix is actually being trampled down by this, making everything that was stereo louder and everything that was mono less loud, making your mix uneven again. So I do not prefer to do this on the master track, ever. I don't prefer to do any stereo separation on the master or stereo enhancement. If I have to, okay, but I really don't prefer that. The mix gets skewed and the elements that had more stereo become louder, the elements that had more mono become less loud, and that actually skews the mix in the direction that it was not in. Now the main thing about this plugin, what we can do is actually encode and decode using the plugin. So what we are doing, it says input is left right and the output is left right. So when we play anything, it's just going to stay the same the way it is. Of course, left right coming in, left right coming out. Now, if I change this output to mid-side, everything on the output of this plugin turns into mid-side. So mid is on our left track and side is on our right track. So now we've encoded this left-right into mid-side. So we have two channels, one with the mid, one with the side. We have the mid on the left, side on the right, or vice versa, depending on how it's encoding. But the point is, we did this, now we can use any plugin to process the mid and side. So we can use any plugin that we like that has stereo processing, so separate stereo processes. Let's say like anything that doesn't have it, natively. Let's see what we could do. So now I could use a channel strip just like this. And this one does have the mid side. Yeah, on its own, but I could use any other that doesn't have it and has stereo processing to actually do different things on the mids and on the sides. So the left is the mids, the right is the sides, and that's how it goes for all. So I have an EQ that I can use in mid-side mode, even though it doesn't have it. Well, this one does, but if it didn't, I could. Or I could use outboard gear, let's say hardware EQs and compressors that work in stereo, to actually use them in the mid-side mode, just by having this encoder send them a signal that acts just like that. Now, what do we do now? Now we have, let's say, the encoder. We are processing this signal in the mids and side. We can, maybe even detach these two. So what we can do is I'm going to switch to duo mode, left and right mode. I could, of course, as you've seen, I had the mid-side encoder right here. I just wanted to show you the external encoder that you could use on any stereo plugin. So now I can use it to just do separate things on the mids, separate things on the sides. You see, it's two different EQs for the left and right channel. And as on the left and right channels, we have the mid and side. That's it. Now, still, when we play this signal, it's still mid and side mode. Just like this. This is how it came out of the encoder, went into this EQ, and through the rest of the chain. So it's still in mid-side mode. What do we do now? Well, we take another one of these plugins. So I'm going to just duplicate this plugin by just dragging, holding control. And now I get another one of those. But now in this one, the second one, you see, that's the second one, I want the opposite. So I have the input of mid-side, it's coming in as mid-side, and I want it decoded back into left and right. So now when I play it, everything's normal. And this EQ, and in fact, any plugin that stands in between these two, receives the left as mid, right as side, and we can use it to process mid-side signals, just like that. So I have the encoder at the beginning. Everything I place after the encoder receives the mid and side signals instead of the left and right signals. And then in the end, after all of those, I decode back from mid-side into left-right, and I get the normal left-right again, meaning that everything, as I told you, in between can be used to process those separately. And we can use equalizers, we can use compressors, whatever we actually like. What I can also do here in Ableton is, let's say, use mono plugins. Just like here, I have mono plugins. And let's choose one. Let's choose a mono plugin. Let's say an audio track, just like this, a mono plugin. Just like that. Now, this is a mono plugin. Everything that comes in is going to add up into both, or it's just going to use the left track being the first one. Now, what I can do is group that one, just like that, Control G, or let me undo that. I could right click and say group this effect. Now, when I check it out, now this effect has its own chain, and I can duplicate that. So I have two of those mono processors, where each one of them processes only one of the channels. Now, how do I send them mono channels? Well, I can use this utility before each one of them, just like this. I have this utility, and on the second one, I'm going to use it too. And in this utility plugin from Ableton, I can choose to send only the left channel, and in the other one, I can choose only to send the right channel. Then now I'm sending them separate channels, and on their outputs, I'm going to make this one all the way left, and the other one that's receiving the right all the way right. And what I'm doing now essentially is I'm sending one only the left, sending the other only the right. They should be working in mid-side mode. Let's check them out. This is one. This is the one for the left, and this is the other one, the one for the right. This one should have the mid signal, this one the side signal. Let's check that out. The mid signal is definitely going to be much louder because it contains the kick drum and all the bass frequencies in it. The side, as you remember, don't have that much bass in them. This is the mid, this is the side. It's this one is way louder. So we can process those separately. So what I've done now is I've created for myself two channel strips, mono channel strips, that are going to process my left and right, so my mid and side, and then that gets decoded back. So many possibilities that you can have with this. But as of now, I'm using internal, so VST plugins, digital technology. You can, of course, as I've told you, use this to utilize your outboard gear, so your analog hardware or digital hardware gear, to process signals in mid-side in case they don't have any of those encoders and decoders. So before you send it to them, you run them through the encoder, which makes the left-right into mid-side. And once you receive those signals back again, you use the decoder, which actually turns that mid-side back into left-right. And in between, you can do anything you want, because on the left channel, you have the mid, and on the right channel, you have the sides. So what I can just as easily do is apply an effect like, let's say, a flanger only on the sides. And that's it. Maybe you can use this creatively. So on, let's say, all of your lead lines, you can apply a flanger that's only going to be applied to the stereo part of the signal, and the mono is not going to be touched. Now, what does that help? Well, let's compare if it was on both of the signals, if it was just on the left and right, if the flanger was applied to everything. Let's hear the difference. Now only on the stereo part. So you see, all the parts of the mono signal are not touched in this way, and hence you get all the transients from, let's say, the kick drum, the snare, everything that it's usually and basically mono. You get them not touched by the flanger, introducing that time delay, that skewing, and the signal stays much more concrete with all the transients still present and really clear punching, but you have that flanging sound on top of everything. So what we could do actually is now group all of these. I'm going to just use Shift to select them all and say group them again. Now when I have all of this grouped into a new rack, just like this, I can save that effect, or I can move that effect anywhere else. So I'm going to just close these, and I can actually move that effect to, let's say, only the bass without the sub. So let's see how that's gonna sound only on this. Well, it does make it so much more loud. Let's pull it down. So that's one of the creative usages where you can actually use the mid side to apply, creative effects like a flanger only to the sides part of the signal, or something that you will apply only to the mid part of the signal. So only the mono part of the signal that's the same on left and right, and only something that you're going to apply to the one that is sides, and that's to the everything that's different on the left and right channels.